Let's discuss the cost of the program. There's a $75 application fee that covers all adults in the household. Doesn't matter if you have one adult or 5 adults, the $75 will cover both credit checks and background checks for all of the adults in the home. Then you have your security deposit. The security deposit is 2 times monthly rent. If your rent is $2,000 a month, your security deposit is $4,000. That money is fully refundable if you choose to purchase the home or if you end the lease and leave the home in good condition. During your application process, they will ask to see that you have that money in the bank. They're not asking you to send money in, but before they make an offer to purchase a home, they do need to know that you have the money available to send the security deposit. Your monthly rent is based on market rent rates. It's not an increased number such as what you would see in a rent-to-own program. Then you have a 5% annual increase in RTP, which is your right to purchase price. So let's say that there's a home for $200,000. In year 1, your right to purchase price would be $210,000. In year 2, it would go up another 5% to approximately $221,000 off the top of my head. There's also a 3.75% increase in the rent. This really just covers the increase in property taxes that Home Partners, as the investor, has to pay as home prices continue to increase. Also, you do have an option to make some improvements to the home, such as carpeting, paint on the walls, or if there are any appliances that are not operable. So if you choose to make any of those improvements, when you go to purchase the home, then you would pay those costs back. There's no extra rent, there's no upfront cost for them to paint the walls, but you would be expected to pay them back as if you chose to have those things done on your own. The only other cost consideration is your closing costs. Every time you purchase a home, there are closing costs for the paperwork, to make sure that the title is clear and those type of things. So the biggest thing to consider when you're looking at these costs is how that compares to if you were to say wait a year to purchase a home. This is a graph that I pulled straight off of Zillow. I didn't make any of these numbers up. I pulled these off of Zillow for McKinney and Frisco. The top one here is Frisco. In the last 12 months, Frisco home prices have increased 15%. So when you look at this 5% increase up to a home that was $200,000 would now be $210,000. If you just waited for the market to increase it 15%, you would be at $230,000. So you save, even if you made improvements such as paint and those type of things, you save minimum $15,000 on a $200,000 home in the first year alone. The second graph is McKinney. You can see it's 14.8% increase, which is pretty much identical situation. The 5% increase doesn't even touch what the current market growth has been doing. It's impossible to tell if we can sustain the current market growth, but for the last 3 years, we have increased in prices from 12 to 16%, and it does continue to increase at this time. So what are the requirements for getting approved? You need a 525 TransUnion credit score. They only look at TransUnion. They don't care about Experian, or I can't remember, the third credit company just slipped my mind. But they don't care about these other scores. They only want to see your TransUnion score, and you need to be at a 525. They also need $50,000 in annual income. Obviously, if you have a higher income, you would qualify for a higher rental rate. But the base rental rate is $1,250 a month. Although that's hard to find, it is possible to find homes at $1,250 a month. And the $50,000 mark is based on that. They generally see that people that make at least $50,000 would qualify for a payment around that, maybe a little higher depending on your other debts. They also want to see no evictions and no felonies in the past. They do take those things pretty strict. They can review them on a case-by-case basis, but there's a lot of rules when it comes to getting those things approved. The last 12 to 18 month history on your credit is pretty important as well. It may not be cut and dry that 525 gets you approved. If you were 525 but you had a repossession last month, then they probably would decline you. If you were 525 but you had several recent late payments, even that could get you declined. They want to see that you are working on your credit. They understand you make mistakes, even things such as your bankruptcy, foreclosures, those type of items are not important, but they want to see that you're on the right path and that you are working to get your score higher. In the next video, we're going to discuss how you start the program and how you find out.